Welcome to She is Resilient, a podcast for women on their healing journeys who are ready to start living their most authentic and empowered lives outside of survival mode. I'm your host, Tatiana, trauma and somatic therapist, as well as a holistic coach, and I'm on a mission to help more women heal their nervous systems. Each week, me and my guests are going to get real and vulnerable about the experiences that led us to becoming the empowered and resilient women we are today. You'll leave this podcast with the skills, knowledge, and inspiration to start creating the life you deserve. Because if another woman can do it, so can you. Welcome to another episode of She is Resilient. Today we're talking all about trauma, one of my favorite topics to talk about because the truth is most people have experienced trauma and they don't even realize it because the majority of people don't actually know what trauma is. So I want to explain to you what trauma truly is and how it impacts your nervous system, as well as what you can do to heal from trauma. So what is trauma? Contrary to what most people think, trauma is not in the event. Although traumatic events can lead to trauma, the event itself is not the trauma. Trauma is actually what happens in your body as a result of survival energy not being released during the actual threat or traumatic event. So you can think about trauma as anything that's too much, too fast, too soon for your nervous system, even if that's a perceived threat. So this piece is important because the nervous system doesn't understand the difference between an actual threat or a perceived threat. So even if you're not actually in danger, if your nervous system perceives it as dangerous, it will immediately go into a state of survival. So when presented with a threat, your nervous system makes a quick decision to fight the threat or flee from the threat. If fighting or fleeing are not options, then your nervous system automatically resorts to freeze. When the survival energy is not properly discharged or released from the body after the danger is over, then that traumatic energy becomes trapped in your body. That traumatic energy is the trauma. If the energy becomes trapped in the body, the nervous system will stay in survival mode until the energy has been released. So again, I want to repeat that. That traumatic energy is the trauma, not the event itself. So what happens in survival mode? When you're in survival mode, your nervous system continues to respond with fight, flight, or freeze to anything that unconsciously reminds it of the original traumatic event, even when that traumatic event is over. So as I've said in previous episodes, your nervous system doesn't use logic, so it doesn't understand that the event is over. So even if you cognitively know that you're no longer in danger, your nervous system will continue to remain in survival mode until you show it that it's safe. So what does survival mode actually look like? If you're constantly in a state of anger or irritability, you may be stuck in a fight state. Becoming easily frustrated, argumentative, or defensive are good signs that your fight response is being activated. So let's think about this. Have you ever gotten really angry at something that may have seemed minor to somebody else? That's probably because your nervous system is reacting to something from the past. Whatever the incident was, it reminded your nervous system of an original wound or trauma, even if you have no conscious awareness to what the original trauma was. If you're noticing that you live in your head, constantly intellectualizing, trying to find the answer to things, experiencing panic, worry, fear, hypervigilance, restlessness, anxiety, avoidance, or feeling the need to be busy all of the time, your nervous system may be stuck in a flight state. I talked a little bit about this in episode 2, but your nervous system's number one goal is to keep you alive. So by intellectualizing, worrying, being on the edge or alert, your nervous system is trying to detect the danger in every situation so that it can be prepared. If you're prepared, then you won't die. That's how your nervous system sees it. So in addition to that, if you've been living in a state of flight for a long time, then this state is very familiar, and the nervous system loves anything that's familiar. Anything that's unfamiliar will be perceived as dangerous and risky. That's why it might be difficult for you to feel comfortable when you're slowing down, meditating, or connecting more with your body. And lastly, being in a freeze state may look like feeling stuck or trapped, being in a fog, living on autopilot, zoning out, being physically or emotionally numb, or feeling disconnected from yourself or others. Freezing happens when there's too much sensation or emotion for your nervous system to handle. So by freezing or disconnecting you, your nervous system is protecting you. Until you grow your capacity to be with uncomfortable sensations and emotions, your nervous system will continue to resort to freeze until your nervous system decides that it's safe enough to feel. So if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, it's a good sign that your nervous system has experienced trauma. And even though we know that trauma isn't an event, I can totally understand wanting to figure out what the original traumatic events were that led to the trauma in your nervous system. But the truth is, you don't actually have to know the original events to heal from them. And that is the beauty of somatic experiencing. So if it's your first time here, somatic experiencing is a body-oriented approach to healing trauma and rewiring the nervous system. This is the somatic tool or the somatic approach that I'm trained in. I use somatic experiencing with my one-on-one clients. And in somatic experiencing, you don't need to talk about your trauma or even remember the events or details of the traumatic events. The reason for this is because, like I've been saying, trauma is not in the event. So trauma is the energy that's been stored in the body. So we need to work with the body in order to discharge the traumatic energy. So the number one thing that needs to happen in order to discharge the traumatic energy from the body is the nervous system needs to feel safe. When the nervous system feels safe, it can release the stored energy, and when the energy is released, the nervous system can return to a balanced state, or what we call regulation. So to create safety, we need to connect with the nervous system's primary language, which is physical sensation. When we access physical sensation, we can separate the past danger from the present safety. So one way you can begin to create safety in your nervous system is through connecting with the pleasant sensations and emotions in your body. So notice when you smile, or when you laugh, when you feel warm, when you feel calm, happy, loved, nurtured, or when you have a pleasant memory or image. Can you give those moments extra time and space? A lot of the time, what people do is laugh without sensing into their bellies or chest or throat, or smile without sensing into the tiny muscles in the lips. So when you experience something that feels good, sense into your body and don't move on from it. Give it time and space. if you can make this an intentional practice, you will create more safety in your nervous system, and you will begin to show your nervous system that you're no longer in danger. So I hope you can make this a practice for yourself. It doesn't have to be daily. Maybe it could be a weekly practice. I hope this episode was helpful, and if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to send me a DM on Instagram, or maybe just share with me your thoughts. I'm always open to having conversations with you, and I could literally talk about trauma in the nervous system all day, every day. So please send me a DM or come hang out with me over on Instagram. I also share some helpful somatic tools and tips to create safety and resiliency in your nervous system, or simply to just support your nervous system. Thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you absolutely loved this episode, I would so appreciate it if you subscribed and left a review on Apple Podcast, or take a screenshot and share this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at tatiana.holistic.coach. The more nervous systems we reach, the more generational cycles we break, and the more we contribute to a kinder and safer world. And if you're looking for somatic healing services, send me a DM and I'd love to chat on how I can support you. I'll see you in the next episode.